The arithmetical annihilation, how American mass production crushed the German war machine. The tank battles of World War II, epitomized by the dueling philosophies of the German Tiger and the American M4 Sherman, were not merely tests of armor and firepower. They were the ultimate demonstration of industrial capacity as the decisive factor in modern warfare. Germany's fatal strategic blunder lay in its adherence to the principle of quality over quantity, a philosophy rooted in engineering hubris that ultimately collapsed under the sheer arithmetic of annihilation delivered by American manufacturing might. German philosophy, quality over quantity. The genesis of the Tiger tank was a direct mandate from Adolf Hitler, a Führerbefehl, leader's order, issued from the Berghof. Hitler was mesmerized by the prospect of an invincible tank, one that would embody Aryan technical superiority and negate the enemy's numbers. He declared that a single, superior tank would be worth a battalion of ordinary tanks, setting the stage for a focus on engineering perfection that crippled the German war economy. Engineering perfection, the handcrafted monster. The Tiger I was, by every measure of military technology, a masterpiece. It mounted the formidable 88mm KWK-36 gun, a weapon capable of destroying any Allied tank at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. Its thick, vertical armor was nearly impenetrable by the standard guns of the early Sherman variants. Complexity as a fetish, the tank was a monument to painstaking craftsmanship. It required an estimated 300,000 man-hours of skilled labor to complete. Its internal structure comprised 26,000 individual parts, a testament to its complexity. The interleaved suspension, a prime example of this complex engineering, was the interleaved road wheel system. This design was brilliant for distributing the tank's immense 57-ton weight, providing exceptional cross-country mobility. However, its precision assembly required master craftsmen, and in the field, its intricacy became a crippling liability. Art, not industry, the production environment at factories like Henschel's was more akin to a medieval guild. Workers, many of whom were master craftsmen, hand-fitted transmissions and meticulously welded armor plates, often signing their names on finished components out of personal pride. This was art, as contemporary records described it, not efficient industrial production. The heavier Tiger II, King Tiger, added only another 492 tanks. The entire fleet of German heavy tanks totaled approximately 1,839 units. Crippled output, the highest monthly production peak, achieved only after 2 years of optimization in April 1944, was a mere 104 tanks. By contrast, American factories were already rolling out thousands of Shermans monthly. The verdict of Speer. The failure was most clearly articulated by Albert Speer, Germany's Minister of Armaments and War Production. Looking back, he concluded, "We sought perfection and achieved paralysis. Every design improvement or modification, intended to boost tactical superiority, resulted in retooling delays that further stalled production, fundamentally undermining the German war effort." American philosophy, quantity and simplicity. The American response to the need for a tank was born not in a military design laboratory, but on a telephone call between President Franklin D. Roosevelt and William S. Knudsen, the former president of General Motors. Roosevelt tasked him with building 50,000 tanks and 50,000 planes. Knudsen's reply defined the American industrial strategy. "We can't build the best planes and tanks, but we can build the most planes and tanks, and we can build them so that any kid from Iowa can fix them with a wrench and a screwdriver." Assembly line efficiency, the good enough tank. The M4 Sherman emerged from this ethos of good enough. The design specifications, laid out in August 1940, were driven by production experts, not traditional military engineers. The requirements emphasized simplicity, interchangeability of parts across variants, and ease of repair by inexperienced conscripts. The Detroit Tank Arsenal. This philosophy found its cathedral in Chrysler's Detroit Tank Arsenal, opened in September 1941. At 1.25 million square feet, It was larger than all German tank factories combined. Mass production mastery. Chrysler engineers adapted the automotive assembly line to tank manufacturing, a concept German engineers deemed impossible. The Sherman was broken down into modular components that were built simultaneously on parallel lines. This allowed a finished tank to move from raw steel to completion in approximately 48 hours. The workforce. The factory floor was staffed by a civilian workforce of former auto workers, teenagers, and women, famously including those like Rosie the Riveter. These workers, requiring only minimal training, executed simple, repetitive steps, ensuring incredible speed and consistency. As one worker noted, they could weld one seam, the tank would move, someone else would weld the next. Overwhelming output, the avalanche of armor. The production figures quickly became an avalanche that buried the German war effort. Early dominance. By December 1942, the Detroit tank arsenal alone was producing 896 Shermans per month. Across the 11 American and Canadian factories manufacturing the M4, total output reached approximately 3,500 Shermans monthly. In that same month, Germany produced only 34 Tigers. The ratio was already an impossible 103:1. Unstoppable momentum. Total wartime production of the M4 Sherman and its variants reached an astonishing 49,234 units, plus another 2,000 plus produced by the British and Canadians. The final total wartime production ratio stood at 27.7 Shermans for every single Tiger, a numerical demonstration of industrial superiority unmatched in history. Guderian's dread. When General Major Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Troops, received intelligence reports confirming these figures in January 1943, his diary entry was succinct and prophetic. "If these numbers are even half true, we have already lost the war." The cascade of defeat, strategic paralysis. The production disparity was more than a statistical footnote. It was a foundational element that generated a cascade of unrecoverable advantages for the Allies, while simultaneously inflicting strategic paralysis on the Wehrmacht. 1. Logistical nightmare fuel pump. The Tiger's design created an impossible supply problem that German logistics, already strained by Allied bombing, simply could not sustain. Crippling fuel thirst. The specialized Maybach HL230 P45 engine, while powerful, demanded high-octane premium fuel, at least 87 octane, that Germany, relying heavily on synthetic coal liquefaction plants, struggled to produce. The consumption rate was staggering, 2.75 gallons per mile on roads, ballooning to 5.5 gallons per mile cross-country. Moving a single Tiger company 100 miles required 15,000 gallons of fuel. Immobilization. By late 1944, German units were routinely reporting operational Tigers being immobilized not by enemy action, but by empty fuel tanks. They were often reduced to watching American columns pass them by, unable to engage due to lack of mobility. Sherman's easy supply. The Sherman ran reliably on regular gasoline, 0.5 gallons per mile. American logistics, exemplified by the Red Ball Express, used 6,000 trucks operating continuously to deliver unlimited fuel and supplies from Normandy beaches to the front. The Allies never once faced a general fuel crisis for their tank operations. 2. Maintenance and readiness crisis hammer and wrench. The design differences translated directly into the operational effectiveness of the two tanks on the battlefield. Tiger's temperament. The Tiger required 26,000 parts and 230 specialized tools for serious maintenance. The complex, precision-engineered transmission lasted only about 500 miles before requiring major maintenance. A minor repair, such as replacing a damaged inner wheel on the interleaved suspension, required removing up to 9 outer wheels, a minimum 12-hour job under ideal conditions. Major transmission damage required a 15-ton crane and weeks of waiting for specialized, hard-to-transport parts from Germany. Sherman's robustness. The Sherman had 15,000 parts and required only 50 common tools for field maintenance. The entire transmission could be replaced in 4 hours, and engine swaps required only 6 hours. American maintenance crews described it as being like a farm tractor with armor, simple and designed to be fixed by conscripts with basic training. Operational rate differential. The outcome was inevitable. By late 1944, Tiger units achieved only a 35% operational readiness rate. Of any 100 Tigers, 65 were often out of action due to mechanical failure or lack of parts. In stark contrast, Sherman units maintained a 90% operational readiness rate. 3. The human cost and morale drain. The production ratio translated into a decisive psychological and strategic advantage for the Allies. Irreplaceable expertise. A fully trained Tiger crew required 19 man-months of highly specialized instruction. When Michael Wittmann and his crew were killed on August 8, 1944, Germany lost 60 man-months of irreplaceable training and combat experience. Germany could not replenish these losses. By 1945, new Tiger crews sometimes received as little as 2 weeks of training before entering combat. Strategic freedom versus paralysis. American forces, with 10,000 trained replacement crews waiting in England, operated with strategic freedom. Commanders could execute operations knowing that a knocked-out tank would be replaced in 48 hours. They could trade tanks for objectives. General Omar Bradley summarized this perfectly. We knew we'd lose 4 Shermans for every Tiger killed. We also knew we had 10 Shermans for every Tiger. The mathematics were simple. We could afford the exchange. They couldn't. Psychological warfare. This knowledge defined the psychological landscape. American Sergeant Joe Saunders recalled. The Germans knew each Tiger lost was irreplaceable. That knowledge that we could afford losses and they couldn't, that won the psychological war. Wittmann's final radio transmission on the day of his death captured this despair. Ammunition exhausted. Enemy unlimited. The mathematics of victory. The final, unassailable truth of the tank war is best seen in the numbers. Metric German Tiger I/2 American M4 Sherman ratio, Sherman, Tiger. Total produced 1,839 49,234, plus 2,000 plus Allied built, 27.7:1. Crew training time 19 man-months minimum 5 man-months standard 4:1, Sherman advantage. Maintenance ratio 10 hours maintenance per 1 hour operation 1 hour maintenance per 10 hours operation 100:1, Sherman advantage. The psychological and strategic cost. The ultimate human consequence revealed the wisdom of the American approach, where the value of the crew exceeded the value of the machine. German despair. Tank aces like Otto Carius admitted at a 1975 veterans reunion. We were fighting mathematics, not Americans. I could destroy 10 Shermans and 20 would appear. It was not combat but arithmetic. The pressure to justify the Tiger's existence led to crews fighting to the death to save their machine. Survival rates. Of the approximately 8,000 German Tiger crewmen, fewer than 2,000 survived the war, a horrific 75% casualty rate. In contrast, of the 250,000 American tank crewmen trained, only 6,500 died in combat, a low 2.6% casualty rate. The American philosophy. Tanks were expendable, crews were not. Saved lives through abundance. Logistical and infrastructure immunity. American industrial might was invulnerable to German attacks, providing a relentless operational edge. Factory immunity. U.S. factories in Detroit, Chicago, and Pittsburgh operated 24/7/365 in perfect safety, fostering continuous improvement in the manufacturing process, the learning curve. Worker suggestions led to thousands of hours of production savings, enough to build dozens of additional Shermans monthly. German vulnerability. Allied bombing crippled German production. The Henschel Works was hit 39 times. This constant disruption, combined with skilled workers being drafted and the use of slave labor, led to rising man-hours per Tiger and a decline in quality. The final irony. As American forces crossed the Rhine in 1945, they simply abandoned damaged Shermans as being not worth repairing, due to the abundance of replacements. German forces, desperate for tanks, were reduced to scavenging and repairing these inferior American tanks, unable to maintain their own complex Tigers. Conclusion: arithmetic triumphs over excellence. The consensus is definitive. The Tiger was the better tank in single combat. The Sherman was the winner's tank. General Dwight Eisenhower captured the strategic truth. We did not defeat German tanks. We defeated German production. The war was decided in the factories of Detroit and on the endless supply lines flowing from the Atlantic ports. The final verdict, delivered by former German Major General Friedrich von Mellenthin, leaves no doubt. We built 1,347 Tigers. They built 49,234 Shermans. Everything else is commentary. In the arithmetic of industrial warfare, the assembly line defeats the craftsman's bench every single time.